didn't know much about this wonderful lady before I met her. I knew all about her business and Goss.ie, like who doesn't? But when I actually listened to her story, which wasn't always the most positive, but she really took all of that. And that's what really has given her the drive to become the woman that she is today. So I hope you enjoy this, the amazing Alexandra Ryan. This series of BBL podcast is brought to you by award-winning skincare brand, Irish-founded, female-founded Ella & Joe by the amazing Charlene Flanagan and Neve Ryan. I will tell you more about Ella & Joe during this episode. So today, I can't wait to introduce the fabulous Alexandra Ryan. Welcome.
Thank you. I feel very homely already.
Do you? Good.
Yeah,
because that's what
lovely
it's all
atmosphere.
about. You know, I know we spoke very briefly and, you know, that's what I said to you. It's just a chat.
Yeah. Sometimes I actually prefer having a chat with someone I don't really know that much because I don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
You know, whereas if you know someone really well, you kind of know where the chat might lead, or, you know, this is like definitely a different experience because it's like a brand new slate. I love it.
It is quite hard. And actually, it's hard for me sometimes because I try not to delve too deeply into people because I like the feeling of like learning something new, finding out things about people. But however, I've interviewed loads of people that I know. Like I always say, Chupi was on the last series.
Chupi, she's fab.
That's probably the third or fourth time maybe I've interviewed her, and every time I find out something different, it's mad, isn't it?
I know. Human beings are literal onions. Like, we'll never get to the bottom and we'll never understand everyone's layers. That's what I love about chats like this. And I think every different conversation leads to different stories and you learn different things. You could probably interview Chupi another 10 times.
Oh, absolutely.
And still have completely different chats.
Yeah.
So it's
and sometimes
amazing.
I feel like I've cut them too short and I'm like, I wanted to keep going.
You're good at keeping them to a good length, I'll say that now.
Perfect. But listen, as we said earlier, you know, this is all about you today and your story, and that's what interests us, is the story of why you've become who you are today. So where did it all begin, like, for you?
In terms of the career, more so?
No, not at all. You
Me
as a person. So where were you born?
So I was born in Dublin, 9th to the 11th. 1989.
Okay.
Like,
so Scorpio?
Yes. I'm the most Scorpio person you will ever meet in your entire life. I was also born at the exact same time that the Berlin Wall was being knocked down.
Oh, wow.
So my mum was in hospital watching it on TV as she was in labour with me, which is mad. So literally the same moment. It's so weird. I've actually never been to Berlin, which is crazy.
Oh, you have to.
But every year on my birthday, there's a huge festival over there because the Berlin Wall was knocked down.
Yeah.
So I need to go back and do that. I was born in Dublin and I lived in Knockline until I was about 11, 12. And then my family moved to Limerick.
Okay.
So I spent my teens there. Yeah, they like built a house there, wanted to settle there. No one settled in Limerick. No one lives there now. But that was the plan at the time. So I would have gone into...
And when you say no one, I'll take you back a bit because we tend to rush through our history. Who is no one? Do you have siblings?
Yeah, so my mum and my dad, and then I have an older sister and a younger sister. So I'm a middle child, the biggest middle child syndrome. Scorpio and middle child mixed together. Like, I'm just a train wreck and an emotional mess. So
that's mad.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends are middle children.
Are they?
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
I did a talk for the leadership conference for the Department of Justice a couple of months ago. And we were talking about research. I can't remember how it came up. We were just talking about criminality, and someone was saying to me that they did research and the middle child is the most likely person to become a criminal, to actually take part in criminal acts. And I was like, that actually doesn't surprise me. It's like murderers, robbers, like you're more likely if you're a middle child.
Or policemen. They become one or the other.
Yeah.
But I always used to say, because I was a middle child for 7 years.
Okay.
So I kind of know the feeling.
Yeah.
And I used to say the oldest one was too sensible to do it. The youngest one was just too cute. And you were always just right. However, it probably was
and
me.
It was hard for me too, because basically my little sister, me and her are Irish twins. There's only 11 months between us. So I do remember growing up being annoyed that I would be fighting for years to get certain things. And then once I got it, she got it too. So I'd always be like, well, why did I have to wait till I was 7? And now she's 6 and she can do it. So I did have a chip on my shoulder, God love her, because my parents used to always throw dual parties together. I didn't like that at all. So I definitely had a problem with it.
And did you like having an older brother?
Sister. Older sister and younger sister. It's
so 3
all girls. All girls.
I'm one of 5 girls. Love the girls though.
She's
Love having sisters.
4.5 years older than me. So I think when my little sister came along, me and her kind of were these twins running around each other. So we probably wouldn't have been as close, but no, we loved her. And she always used to play teacher with us. And she became a teacher. My little sister's also a teacher, and they're both married to teachers.
Oh, wow.
So they have very kind of similar lives.
And growing
very
up,
different to mine.
were you all very close? And did you like school? Were you academic? Did you love school? Did you hate school?
I absolutely hated school. Okay. Not because of academia, but just because I was so badly bullied in every school I went to.
Okay.
So primary school, I started getting bullied when I was like 5, 6, 7. It went on for years. And then when we were moving to Limerick, around that time, it had gotten to a massive height in the school. Like the principal was involved, the vice principal. And back then, I mean, this is the 1990s, like their resolution was like, just let the two of them hang out. And like, so I was forced to spend time with like my bully all the time on my own, doing activities. So it just got worse. And I remember leaving the school. It was St. Columkills in Knockline. I remember leaving school and I had no friends. Like I literally had no one left at all. So I kind of, the bullying I've always experienced has been very much like isolation. So like, people maybe talking about me and then people pulling away from me, not wanting to spend time with me. So that kind of happened there. So the move to Limerick came at a really good time. And to be honest, I think it was part of the reason we left, because I was in a very bad place at that time.
It's awful. And I think, obviously bullying it's so different now. I was listening to something the other day, people saying, before phones and stuff. In my school, we kind of all took a turn of being bullied, which sounds really weird, but we were all in a big group.
Yeah.
And I remember when it was my turn, it wasn't nice.
Yeah.
But I also remember probably not defending like I should have when it was someone else's turn.
And that's why adults have to step in. Like,
they do.
Obviously, I was saying my sisters are teachers, their husbands are teachers. I'm very vocal with them all the time on like the effects. Like my nephew, obviously I have like 5 nephews, but one of my nephews started school today. And the anxiety that I have, just him going in, like I feel anxious all the time. Like I had such a horrible, horrible time. I remember even like years after I left school, I'll explain the other skills now, but when I went back to one of them for a leadership award ceremony my sister was in, and the anxiety I had walking even in the building, like I literally, my biggest thing that I'm really not looking forward to in my life is bringing my children to school. Like I literally just had the worst time, because we moved to Limerick then and I did half of 5th class and 6th class there in a primary school. Not too much really happened there. It wasn't ideal. What used to always happen to me, because I deep down am a very bubbly, chatty, smiley, can talk to anyone in the world.
You come across as like a social butterfly.
I was like that. Like now I'd say I kind of fake it more so, but back then that was genuinely who I was.
Yeah.
So I'd land in a new school and I'd be immediately in the popular group straight away, because I'd be chatting to all the boys, all the girls. I was kind of blondie. I was like singing and dancing and like wrote school plays and everything. Was really into like extracurricular creative things. And then always kind of something would happen with a girl in that group where she just obviously now looking back felt intimidated by me. The new shiny thing was coming in. Yeah. So that school, I don't remember anything major happened. Maybe there was a few little bits, but I was there for such a short time. There was a few things. And then I moved to another school, so Salesians, Copswood and Pallaskenry. So we moved from the city to the middle of nowhere, which is the plan.
Okay.
That was always the plan.
Yeah.
And those few years were horrendous. Like the first year again, I think shiny new thing, we were new to the town, all these Dublin girls.
Small school?
Yeah, small, and the town more so was very, very small. The school, some people came from a few others. I can't even remember the classes. Like I've blanked out so much. But then I think second year onwards, that was it. It happened all over again. And that school in particular dealt with it so badly. Like I'd be sitting in a class and no one would sit beside me, and I'd be on my own for hours, and teachers were seeing it and not intervening. But I was really active in that school. So were my sisters. We were all really musical. So we sang in like the choir, the solos, which apparently just, again, I kept being in positions where people were just jealous, I suppose. Yeah. Looking back now, I didn't think that was the problem at the time. Being able to talk to boys, like I was in a mixed school. So like I think my first year I ended up going out with, I mean, I was like 13, the like lead guitarist in the band. None of these things mattered to me, but like it seemed to matter to everybody else. And things were getting progressively worse. And then I started self-harming when I was in secondary school as well. And I hid that from my family for a really long time. And my mum's a psychiatric nurse. So it then came out and I told her, and I was properly like really hurting myself.
And can I ask, when you felt that isolation and no one was helping, which I just can't get my head around, but anyway, that's the way it was. Yeah. You did music, so at that time you were involved with other people. Was that a time for you where you didn't feel isolated, or did you just feel like the soloist with other people?
No, like I definitely, performing in general was always like my little escape, because it was in school that I would do the singing, and it was actually a priest, Father Martin, who like managed the kind of extracurricular stuff, and I used to love going to his classes. The problem would be I'd then sing the solo, and like one of the last things that happened in that school, I got like tripped up on the altar in front of everybody. So like it caused I suppose, an increase of people watching me, not being happy with me being the centre of attention. But personally doing it, yeah, I loved it. And I went to Spotlight Stage School in Limerick for like 5 years. That was like outside hours.
Yes.
I always got lost in like performing, acting. I was writing like little short stories when I was like 7. Like I won poetry competitions when I was like 11.
So you were super creative.
Always. Won like a public speaking competition when I was 12. So like but it makes me sad looking back now because I was just doing all these things that if it was my daughter, I'd be so proud and it's so amazing. But all it did was cause me grief.
Okay.
And all it did was make me hate myself and hate the fact that I wanted to do those things because it was causing constant problems all the time.
Did you play any sports?
I played basketball. See, I moved school so many times. I played basketball in one of the schools in Limerick when we were in the city, and I loved that. And then we went to the country school, it just wasn't really there for girls. I think GAA was quite big there, but we were from Dublin, so like we didn't really play GAA.
Once you're in, girl, you're in for life.
For me, the sport was musicals. It was doing that stage school. It was dancing. It was writing. I played the guitar. I played the piano. Like all of that stuff was my extracurricular. Like so, that was my happy place doing those things. But, it is definitely so much worse now. I don't know how I would have handled things now. But like, you know, towards the end of that last school before I moved to the final school, like I would wake up dreading like going to school. I didn't want to wake up. Like I literally was like, I can't go in today. I was wandering out of classes and stuff, just wandering around the halls and like no one said anything either. I just didn't want to be there. I failed like junior cert science. So when I went into 5th year, all my teachers like, you need to go to pass. And I talked to my parents about it and I was like, I don't know, maybe this is like, I'm not an academic person. Like maybe I should be like, I was into so many other things creatively. I was like, maybe I'll be a hairdresser. And then basically around that time I got tripped up on the altar. I wasn't in for a few days because I didn't want to go to school. And they kind of cornered my sister and I found out about that. And then I was like, I have to leave now because my sisters had never been bullied. And I was like, that's like the end of it. So I know there's so many different times, but for half of 5th year and 6th year then I went to a school called Tutorial. It's basically a grind school. So it's only academic. There's no extra hours. It's like 9 to 9. People go there to like do medicine and stuff like that. And that is the only time I've had a good experience in school. Wow. And suddenly I started getting A's in absolutely everything. My parents were literally like, what the hell? I was so in such a bad mental state in that other school that I would spend class staring out the window, not wanting to be there, wanting to just be anywhere else. I was failing things all the time. And as soon as school became about actual schoolwork, not about people.
I was just going to say, what was the trigger? What was the change? And the change was that this place, you just put your head down.
Yeah, and I didn't even really feel a switch, which is funny. As in like when the results came back, we were all like, oh. But like at the time I was like, okay, I meant to do this. My head was down. When there was people ignoring me or being mean to me or, you know, isolating me and stuff like that, that's all that was on my mind all the time. So like how was I able to take in information? So yeah, when I was there, then the principals of that school, they were really involved in all the students and they were like, we think you should go for law. And I was like, yeah, I want to do law. And I like got really high points in my mocks and I was like, yeah, let's go. Like, let's do law. I was getting A's in literally everything, including business. Like I didn't even do business all the way up to 5th year and then did it in 6th year and got like an A in it. But then like a week before my exams, I got really sick, didn't know what was wrong. And it turned out I had just got diabetes.
Oh, wow.
So I have said the story before, but it's an important story because at the time I was like, well, I've just had these really horrible few years. I finally figured out what I'm meant to do. I'm really smart. I actually am really smart. Yeah. I want to go and be a lawyer. And now I'm really sick. And it happened the days before, like in the hospital in UL in Limerick, like they still talk about me as the girl who came in before her Leaving Cert. Because they were like, right, you need to do Leaving Cert in the hospital or you need to like stop and do it next year. And I just know what I'm like. And I said to my mom, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do the Leaving Cert. Yeah. Like it has to be now. And you're meant to stay in hospital for at least a week to learn how to inject and everything. And I was so scared of needles at the time. And I was like, no, I need to get out. And I literally just learned it. I was out 2 days later and I went straight into the exams. And I remember leaving the hospital and they were like, you know, you're going to find yourself, like your brain's going to feel really fuzzy for a few days, brain fog. And I was like, that's not ideal because I'm starting Leaving Cert in 2 days. And I remember even playing Trivial Pursuit at home with my sister to try and get my brain thinking. And the answers I was coming out with made no sense or anything. Okay. But I was like, no, like I have to do it. So I remember one of my first exams just sitting in the hall for 20 minutes. I didn't even write. I was just like, how am I going to do this? So in my mocks, I think I'd gotten like 480 or 490. And that year, the year before law had been 425. So I ended up getting 425, but law went up that year. So that whole summer, I remember being like, God, I really hope I got my points because it was a real blur, the Leaving Cert. I'd had like the first love of my life break up with me and my parents split up. It all happened in the same summer. I remember we were getting towards the end of the summer and my mom was like, look, do you know what? You're going to get your points though, because you just had such a rough time. And then I didn't get my points. And I remember my fourth choice was media and English. So I had business and French as second and business something else as third. But for maths, I actually forgot to bring my calculator. Like I was so not with it. And so I got a D2 and passed maths because I literally had no calculator. Like I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So to do a business degree, you have to have at least a C3, I think. So I missed out on it. So I got the prospectus and I remember crying in my house being like, I don't want to do new media and English. Like it's not what I want. Obviously, when I was going through those bad periods, I was writing, I was creative, but I had just experienced what academia was like and I loved it.
Yeah.
And my mom again was like, do you want to take a year out? And I was like, no. I was such a nightmare to her, I'd say. Because I was like, if I don't go now, I'm never going to go. Like, I know what I'm like. If I had just got a job, I never would have gone to college.
And I obviously didn't grow up here. So a lot of what you're saying, I'm like, what? There's no other choice. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4. No one's sitting with you and saying, well, actually, there is another option. Like, that doesn't happen.
For the CAO forms you fill out, there's only certain choices, and that's to go to college. If you don't want to go to college and you want to go to like technical, it's actually some of the technical colleges you put down the C. It's been so long since I did it.
Yeah.
There are back doors into things, but no, that was never an option.
Like, I know we can talk to our parents, but there was no one coming in and saying, look, Ali, maybe this is a choice for you.
I had a guidance counsellor in the first school I was in, and I remember I had this whole chat with him about, I want to be a TV presenter, I want to this, I want to that. And then he was like, yeah, I think you'd be a great nurse. And I was like, okay, didn't listen to you talk. And I think someone from Limerick's Live 95 FM came in once. I was so shocked in one of the career days because they never had people in media. And I remember being obsessed with him and I was like, this is so cool. And he told me he was like making little audio tapes and dropping them off to like the owners of the stations. I was like, oh my God. So the interest was there. It's just that when I got into tutorial, I took a different path. I thought that I was meant to take a different path. What I always say now, and I know the Leaving Cert results obviously came out in August, but obviously God or the universe or whatever you believe in was like, she's not listening to me and she's going down the wrong path and we need to get her to go to her fourth choice. Yeah. Because that's basically what she's meant to do with her life. So at the time I didn't think that and I was devastated and I was angry and I was resentful and why me and why this summer everything else has happened. Like I now just have a long-term illness as well. But then a few months into it, I started liking it. And then basically what changed it for me is I did a co-op in UL. The reason UL were on my CAO forms because I wanted to come back to Dublin. Okay. But UL have a year out basically where you go on Erasmus and you get a co-op. And I wanted to work. I wanted to experience life. That's what I wanted. I didn't even do transition year. Like I was like, get me out. Like I was always like, get me out of everything.
I think that's such an important piece of it though as well.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of students that do that. You know, the third year is in placement. Yeah. And that's where you really learn.
Like it changes your life because like you're being told what to learn in school and when you go into the real world, you decide what you want to learn because you start to realise. So I got a position in the Limerick Post and like they didn't even have a position. They didn't have an internship. I literally just would not leave. And it was meant to be unpaid for like 6 months and it ended up being fully paid for 10 months and I stayed. Wow. And that was like general news. So I was like meeting with politicians. I did like crime stories and like the stuff that was going on in Limerick at the time was scary. Yeah. Like and my name was on like really huge crime stories at the time. And I just loved it so much. And then and during that time, just to say another thing about me, I had another job. So like I've always had at least 2 jobs at a time. Like I've never just had one job. So that was during college, had 2 jobs or whatever. Then the Limerick Post ended and my Erasmus, it was time for that. So I went to Italy. I was dying to work over there, but we ended up in the UL like put us in the wrong place in this tiny village where no one spoke English, so I couldn't get a job. But that was an amazing experience to live there. And I obviously did my J1 in first year, so I did a lot of life experiences. And then when I came back, still had 2 jobs on the go. And then Spin Southwest had a radio ad saying they were looking for a new newscaster to join the team. And I was still in college at this point. I applied for it and I got that. So I was literally at the end. I literally did all the news segments. And at the very end of every segment, after trying to learn how to pronounce the name of tennis stars and all the stuff that was going on in the general news, at the end I'd be like, now for like your 2-minute showbiz roundup. And it would be about showbiz. And I just stuck to that. I loved it. I was like reading Hello Magazine, OK Magazine. I was obsessed with Expose, which was such a massive show when I was growing up. So I was like, ooh, I like this. So while I was in Spain, I set up a blog while doing the other jobs and in my final year of college called Maggie Red. Like it changed to Miss Red as well. It's just like a kind of Perez Hilton. And I interviewed like Laura Whitmore, Vogue Williams when she was starting, and I just got on to everybody and I loved it. So before I did my exams in UL, I sent that blog out to, I literally Googled editor of Irish Independent, I literally editor of whatever, emailed it to absolutely everybody being like, this is basically my CV. And the Indo were like, come down and meet us. So, well, they didn't even know I was living in Limerick actually. I just showed up and it was for the Herald and they're like, we have a position. I didn't even tell them I was doing my exams. And when I arrived, the day I was meant to start, nobody knew who I was. The person who'd hired me wasn't there. So they were kind of like, who's this girl? And then this guy just came up and he was like, look, just write some sort of showbiz story. And I was like, okay. So I wrote a story and then he came back with a huge A5 or A3 printout.
And what year was this?
2012, 2011. No,
Okay.
2011. Yeah, it was just as before I graduated. So 7, 8, 9, 2010. Sorry, 2010.
Okay. And how old are you now?
I'm 34.
Okay.
So I was like 21. Yeah. Probably just turned 21 that year. And then, he came over and he with the story that I thought might be good. And he was in a huge blowout picture and he was like, that's page 3 tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And he was like, do you understand what page 3 means? 3. Like page 3 is the page that everybody wants to be on. It's the front page or it's page 3. And I was like, okay. And then he was like, when can you start? So that basically, I just jumped straight into it. I was at my graduation. I was the only person with a job in media before like even being handed her. But that's the kind of person I am. Like that's what I'm like.
Head of the game.
So that's kind of how that story changed my life. If I had ended up in law, like keep in mind, I went into college in 2007. So in 2008, the recession hit. So any of my friends that did get law, none of them ended up working in firms.
It's that sliding door piece again, isn't it?
Absolute sliding doors. And it's like I'd forgotten I had this love there because I'd had such a tormenting time in school. I didn't even know who I was or what I wanted. But I felt good when I got good results in that school.
But once you got out of school, like obviously, you always had these second jobs going on. Like what kind of jobs were you doing?
So like my first kind of jobs was always something to do with like hospitality. So like I was like a bar woman running a bar. I'm not even going to say where it was because I was 15 and they didn't know.
Yeah.
And then they figured out I was 15, but they kept me on because they were like, you're so good at it. So I did lots of like races, let's say, like lots of occasions. So I used to do that. And then when I was 13, I worked in a printing press in Pallaskenry in my tiny little farmer town.
Amazing. It
was a farmer's journal. I literally used to sit there and close it and put the staple in. Then I worked in like a local shop in the town for £3.50 an hour, £350 back then. And then my first like full-time job or fullish job was the Early Learning Centre in Limerick while I was in college. And that included a Friday morning 6 a.m. shift of lifting up all the wooden toys upstairs. So like always just going.
Though the confidence, you start working at 13. How do you get the confidence after having a really shitty time at school with people, with groups of people, being isolated, but you've still, that's really resilient. You've still got the confidence to go and get these jobs where you're going to be working with people.
See, I think what it actually is it's drive and it's because of those things. So I felt bad about myself all the time. But then I'd get a job and I was amazing at it.
Yeah.
Like I knew I was good. I knew I could literally do anything in the world. I worked in a chipper once. Like you put me in any workplace, I'll make it the best company in the country. Like, but it's because I had to prove that I was good at something because I literally thought I wasn't a good person. Like nothing was good. So I think when I started working and earning my own money and be able to buy my own things, I started feeling self-validated. Like, okay, well, I'm good at this and I can do this. And maybe in performance and stuff, that's why I really enjoyed it because the audience would be clapping and I'd get the lead role. And like, I was like, okay, I'm good at this and this makes me happy because like people are saying that I'm good. Because the flip side of it was 9 to 5 every other day. It's like, you're not a good person. Nobody likes you. No one wants you around. So to have somewhere else, I suppose work and I don't even see work as work. I see like personal and career. So for me, every decision I made work-wise was a career. It was making money for myself. It was making myself self-sufficient. Also, when my parents broke up when I was 17 for the final time, I remember being like, I'm never going to be in a position where I don't have my own money, like a lot of money, a lot of cushions around me. So I was very driven to make money. Like money was a big part of it. And when I was in school, when I was in college, one of my jobs after the Early Learning Centre was working in O2, the mobile phone company.
Yeah.
But I went from customer care. I got hired. I got a, what's it called? I should know what this is called.
Headhunted.
No, I got a raise or better position.
Yes.
I can't think of the word. To a salesperson. And like 20 people went for it in the company and I was 19. I remember we'd do like this week training and you'd to like make up your own ads and everything. And I was like, right guys, we're going to do this, do that. And people were like in their 30s and I was 19. So I don't think it was a shock to anyone that I got that. And then I won like best salesperson every month. So again, another trajectory was in my mind. I was like, wait, should I work in advertising? But I was like 19 then. So then spin came around. A lot of different things were kind
Happened
of
at
up
the
in the
right
air.
time.
But now when I look back on all the jobs I did and all the interests I had, everything I do now in my life is a combination of everything. Like I'm really, really good at sales. I'm amazing at commercial, but I love being creative, and that's what Goss.ie is as a business. Like it's the two melted together. So I love working and I love work. And I know I was saying to you earlier, I feel like there's been a slight change in work and what it means to young people now. There's this belief that if you work hard, if you work late, that it's toxic. I totally disagree. I think your career can be one of the most important things in your life. Of course, people are more important. Of course, living your life is, but there's such an amazing validation and like leaving behind a mark, I suppose, on the world that you can get from work. Like genuinely, like, and you're helping other people, you're helping a business. It gives you a purpose in the world, as does obviously having a relationship and having kids. I understand that. And like, I'm dying for all that myself, but I love work.
And did your parents work for themselves, or?
My dad did. He like never finished school, and he started like a car garage in Crumlin, and he's not from Crumlin or anything like that, but we just ended up getting one there. And it was like the first crash repair centre that did spray painting. He used to spray paint all the Extra Vision vans. That was his first job.
Okay.
So he was very much self-made, did everything himself, you know, kind of rented a place in a yard, then ended up selling the yard, and then was able to build our big lovely house in Limerick. So he was like a bit of a success story for that. But then like he changed his job a lot. So like now what he does is not the same. So he could kind of change what he wanted to do, but was able to do anything. And me and him would be quite similar like that. Like I used to help him out with, he became a plumber, a heating specialist in the end. And I remember like plumbing some houses with him. And I remember thinking then, I would have been like 16, if I see something once, I can do it again forever. Like I'm like that and he's like that. So he's very practical, but he wouldn't have had the academic side of it.
Yeah.
Then my mum's a nurse.
Okay.
So, but she is like really good with people, really warm, really loving. And I would say probably quite creative as well.
That's an amazing combination, because
Very
you've got
different.
your drive from your dad and your nurturing piece from your mother.
Yeah, totally different people.
Yeah.
And like my sisters being school teachers, like it's a very creative job.
Yes.
It's very creative. And it's almost like running your own little business, like the decisions you have to make, the organisation. So it's funny, we're probably all similar in some ways, but they went through safer paths than I did, I suppose.
And the difference between school then and college and doing media, did you feel the difference? I want to say thank you so much to Ella and Joe, our sponsors of this episode of Bell Podcast. Ella and Joe is all about bringing a joy and vibrancy to skincare. Each product is inspired by nature and boosted by science, designed to deliver the most amazing results, but also to be kind to your skin. It is luxury moments that brighten up our day. And as always, I want to bring it back to me with my two hero products. The 3-in-1 Hyaluronic Spritz, it stays in my bag all the time. And if you haven't tried Melt Away, then it's a must. It's the most beautiful cleanser. And don't forget, all Bell listeners can get 20% off all full-size products online. Just use the code BBELL at checkout. So thank you, Ella and Joe, for sponsoring this series of Bell Podcast.
College wasn't massively great either, but it was that year, the experience, and Italy. I just seem to always fall out with people. Like I really struggled to make friends. The best friends that I have in my life are people I met in my late 20s. Like, you know, I'm not friends with anybody from school or from college. Again, I felt maybe some similar issues happened there. Like even I went to the Gaiety School of Acting after college.
Interesting.
When I was in the Mail on Sunday. And I even fell out with people in there. And I remember I was going for roles in films. I don't think we were meant to do them, but I was getting them. So I was doing them, and then that became like a problem. So it's kind of a little bit of a pattern with me. I'm sure I'm very off-putting though as well, because I'm like anxious that everybody doesn't like me from the get-go. So I can come off quite standoffish at first in new groups. So I'm like very bad with groups. I don't like groups. If you were like, oh, there's 6 of the team that want to meet you now, I'd have anxiety. Like, but if it was 1, 2 people, absolutely, I'll tell them my whole life story. Yeah. But groups, I just have an anxiety about.
I think everybody's a little bit like that.
Yeah.
I'd say yours is definitely heightened because of your experiences.
Yeah.
But I think we all, like, I don't want you to think that's abnormal, because I think we all are a little bit like that. Like, I mean, I'm a networker. I still feel sick before I walk into a room of 50 people. I love presenting to 500 people in a room, but I still feel sick before I do. But I bloody enjoy it.
It's funny to me, like when it's work, you could tell me speak to 5,000.
Yes.
I don't care. I never even get nervous anymore. Don't care. Put me on live television. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
But it's like in my actual personal life when it's not. Because like that Ali now that you'd see at events, that's a switch on now, which is sad because that's actually who I used to be.
Yeah.
But that was just like destroyed from all the things that happened over the years. So now I'm able to reach back into it and do it for work and be like chatty. But if you were to ask me, do I want to go to this really fun event tonight and meet all these people or stay at home alone? I'd be like, I want to stay at home.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I actually want to do, which is kind of sad because like that was who I was. And like I am the kind of life and soul of most gatherings, like in my family and stuff. I'd always crack the jokes and organise every event that we do. Like even I did a double baby shower for my sisters a couple of weeks ago. I'll make everything special and amazing and big and all that sort of thing. But then still deep down, I'm like, I'd rather just be at home. So it's a weird thing.
But you know what? I don't know if it's you want to be at home or you just want to pick wisely who those group of people are. Like if you...
It's just exhausting. It feels like you're pretending to be somebody else.
Yeah.
But that's why I find it sad because I actually was like that. But at this point now, it's like I have to dig back in and get that confident person.
Yes.
And I would say a lot of people who maybe don't like me would think I'm very up myself and overly confident because maybe the way I act on Instagram. And it's so funny because throughout my life, all the people I've met, the most seemingly confident people are the most like hard on themselves and so self-critical.
100%.
So it's interesting. But yeah, no, so college wasn't like the most amazing either. It was grand though. Like it wasn't horrible or anything. I just was like, oh yeah, I just wanted to work. I did an arts degree. So there was like 4 hours a week. I was like out all the time. At first year I did a really good job because I just come from a grind school. Then we found out first year marks didn't count. So I was like, right, well, I'm not bothering anymore. So like I actually failed a few subjects in second year and then I went on my Erasmus, but apparently I wasn't meant to go because like I technically had failed a subject, but I had done a re-exam and thought it was fine. And all my parents had to go into the college and everything. There was a huge drama over the issues I've caused my family. And I was like, well, I'm in Italy now. So anyway, that was fine. But then in fourth year, again, shock horror, like I did really well. Once I actually wanted to do well, I like went from like probably the lowest marks in the class to like really, really high. But I'd already had my job in the Herald. So I was like work, money, career.
And did you love the Herald?
Yeah, it was a wild time. I think the position that I have then, it's not even possible that it exists now. Like I'd be in there at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd be out until 2 o'clock in the morning. I ended up doing the diary in the Herald. I don't know if you know what that is.
I do, yeah.
But when you become the diarist in the Herald, everyone always says like you'll do any job in media. So it was really a training ground. But it was very, very tough. There were lots of tears. It was a dedication to my job. Like I was technically freelance. So like if I took holidays, I didn't get paid.
Yeah.
So I was there 24/7. There was a lot of effects that had on my relationships and stuff like that at the time because I was just like, I have to work. But again, I don't think that's a bad thing really. I wanted to prove myself and that year in the Herald did because I then got poached by the Mail on Sunday. They came to me. And again, I would have been only just turned 22 at this point. One of the youngest people in the industry and everybody had heard of this showbiz reporter job in the Mail on Sunday and everyone wants a Sunday paper job because you have a whole week to write stories.
Massive.
I was in the Herald twice a day from 6 a.m, 5 a.m. So anyway, what didn't really go down that well in the industry that I got that job, nor did it go down well with people that worked there. So there was a few issues with that. So again, it just felt like being walking back into school again. It was just like, here we go. And I don't know, is it the blonde hair and the boobs that just really put people off really quickly that they're like, who does this girl think she is? But that was hard. And then my whole career goal when I got to the point that I was in national newspapers and stuff. And at this point I was a really good journalist. Like I knew my shit. I knew I was better than other people. And that's not being overly cocky or up myself. I literally, my whole life was dedicated to it. Of course I was the best at it. Like it's all I cared about. So I was like, I want to win Showbiz Journalist of the Year. And I got nominated and I was like, oh my God. So I was like the youngest to ever be nominated. I was up against other people within the same publication, which also did not go down well.
Okay.
And I remember Paddy Power had betting at the time and my bosses didn't bet for me. My aunt and one of my friends did and then I won. And I was the least likely odds.
I was like, did you put some money on yourself?
Didn't even do that.
God damn it.
I remember them saying the way they do it at the NNIs is the National Newspaper of Ireland. They explain why they chose the winner just before they say it. And I can actually do that now at Women of the Year. And as they were speaking, I was like, I know this is me. I knew it was me because I had done the interviews I was up for, the news articles I was up for were really in-depth interviews and they were really good. And they were things that people hadn't talked about before. And they said something, it's actually still online what they said on the day. They said something like, you know, like her ability to get in-depth. And I was like, oh my God. So when that happened, and every like really successful person says this, and I'm not saying I'm successful, but what I mean is when you have a goal and you reach it, it's a very odd feeling because I was like, I'm just 22 and I've just reached my entire career goal. What the hell am I meant to do now? So right after that, London found out I'd won the award. They brought me over in secondment to the Mail Online in London. It was actually just the paper though. And I had my own little team over there. They put me on the showbiz desk. And there was definitely an opportunity to work there. And I was like, okay. And then Mail Online in the US, you have to think back, this is 2013 now, right? Early 2013. I met with the guys who were setting up Mail Online in LA. They were in a garage in Santa Monica. There was 3 of them sitting there. And there was a job there too. So I had all these opportunities. And then I was like, there's literally no entertainment news websites in Ireland though. Like there's nothing here. Nobody cares about entertainment. RT News was there. The Independent were there. Were they sharing stories about Ryan Tubridy and Victoria Beckham? No, they weren't. They were like stuff about the doll and crime, and which is all very important.
Yes.
But the appetite for showbiz was growing. I could see it. Now keep in mind at this point, Instagram wasn't even really a thing when I started Goss. And I was like, I think there needs to be a way to give instant news to people. Everyone's obsessed with it. And because if you think back to kind of my life story, I suppose, of me having this escape all the time from all the bad things, I've always thought about that with entertainment news. It's like there's horrible things going on all the time. And obviously we try to find ways to maybe highlight them, like even the Gaza stuff, we've found ways to talk about. But our main job is to distract people who are having bad times. Like I want people to get on and be like, oh my God, gas. We're nice. We don't go after people. They like the way we treat people is very kind. That wouldn't really be the way in the newspapers when I was in them. Not all of them. I'm not saying the editors were bad people, but there were situations that I wasn't comfortable in.
So do you see yourself as like a PR person in some ways for celebrities? Because you say, you know, like a good PR person tells the story, but also keeps the story out. No one's perfect.
I think people see us as PR. I mean, if we write about someone, everybody does. That again is just the reality. Yes. I've had people be like, can you write about this? Because if you do, it's going to go everywhere. And that happens. So I do think we've have a massive part to do with a lot of people that are very big now. Like Instagram and TikTok, people are blowing up themselves. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. They're amazing creators. But how they get taken seriously or put on Ireland AM or put on TV is, do the media write about them? And that's kind of what we have done. Now, I'm not saying everyone, there's so many people that we've never written about, but if we write about an influencer who we feel is starting to blow up, suddenly the other publications are writing about them. If we nominate someone for a Goss.ie, suddenly the next awards are nominating them. So yeah, I definitely think we push people up and we get people into good places. Yeah. Which would be not very similar to the other competitors we would have. I don't think they care, to be honest. Whereas it is a part of it for me. I think it's important that we're helping nurture talent. Like Barry Cohen, for example. Like I remember writing about him when I was in the Herald, when I was in the Mail, when he started in Love Hate. And I remember being like, oh, we should keep talking about him. And like, I love the idea of helping someone get there. Yes. It's very, very, very hard to be in the media circuit. It's easy to start in a TikTok or, you know, to start a podcast and all that sort of thing. But until you start getting to a more, you're accepted. It's not that fucking easy, Alex. But you know, as in... I'm kidding. No, it's so hard. Creators have such a hard job. And I love creators. I love influencers. And I'm always defending them. I think they're amazing. But it is very hard to be taken seriously. And I feel like I've had to have that battle. I still have it now to be taken seriously by the people. Yes, they're all taking all our content all the time and they're watching everything we do, but don't seem to want to take me seriously. So I understand it. And maybe that's why, like, we were the first people to nominate influencers, for example, at the Gossies. That had never been done. Yeah. I remember it was so different. The first one you did was so different. The Business Post wrote an article about it because they were like, Ali Ryan, like, is focusing on influencers. What a flex. This is weird. Yes. And now it's like absolutely the norm. And even behind the scenes, like so many influencers. But I think most influencers now, a lot of the good influencers now have businesses as well. Yeah. When they started, they were platforms. And they didn't know what they were doing. They saw the value out of having that platform, and now most of them have like a brand alongside. It's very hard to be an influencer, and like people can have their 15 minutes and then like someone else has them. It's a really tough job. That's why I always feel like I defend them a lot, because I think they do have a really tough job. And I think as a media organisation, it is our job to, I suppose, show them that they're worthy of being in the media and being in the spotlight and stuff like that. Because I even remember when we first started, we did an interview, I can't remember who it was with, one of the influencers anyway, and a couple of days later they rang me and they were like, oh, I just got an interview with the Irish Times. I was like, oh my God, it's so cool. And they were like, no, it's because of the Goss interview. Yeah. So we would be like massively watched by competitors all the time. And I know everyone's like, oh, like you should be happy that people are looking at you or whatever, but it's not great because people are taking my team, like they're taking staff members. Yes. They're pretty much all but copying our content, and we're like a really small team, so that really bothers me. It is hard because you're still, and I think people, because they've got to know
what you do so well, everybody and anybody that isn't in business just presumes you're massive.
Yeah, I know.
But
no
actually,
one would think,
you're pedaling like, you know, it's
all the
that
time.
swan thing, isn't it? You know, above the water it looks one way and underneath we're paddling
Things
away.
have definitely got better. Like COVID changed our business. Like if anyone had known how hard it was before that, you honestly wouldn't believe me. You'd be like, that's not true. COVID changed everything for us, and it was mainly not readership. The readership was always high, increased a small bit, but it was the advertising side.
Everybody
like people forget that like we give you a free product every single day. And there's multiple people on a team doing that for you, all for free. And the only way we can make money is advertising. So yes, we got money pulled like probably like 100 grand overnight. That was like pipeline, but also people who couldn't pay invoices from a few weeks ago. Everybody shut it down. And I really had a moment of what are we going to do? And I talked to other media owners and they were like, well, we're going to let people go. We're going to lower their wages. I was like, I'm going to let go of the office. I just immediately decided that. Didn't let anybody go at all. And then I said to the girls at the time, I was like, I want us to be remembered that like during COVID, we did extra, we did more. And then I don't know if you know, but we did the Goss.ie as a live stream.
Yes.
And the difficulty in doing a live broadcast, I'd never done it in my life, but this is the way I am. I'm like, grand, let's do it for like whatever. And I'm obviously diabetic, so I was like isolating all during COVID. I barely saw my family. I was on my own for 8 months. And I was like, but we have to do this. We have to do the Goss.ie. So I had to hire like a COVID safety officer, and his honest main job the whole day was to keep everybody away from me because the vaccine wasn't out yet.
Yeah.
And there's multiple reasons we wanted to do it. We wanted people to be entertained at home. We had like Nikki Byrne, Nicola Coughlan, Laura Whitmore, Baz Ashma, everybody got dressed up. It was in all of the press. I was like, oh my God, Lifestyle Sports were a title sponsor. It was such a turning point for us. And I remember literally like I was doing so much, like Lucy Kenny would be on the Zoom, not even really knowing who to go to. And I was just holding up sheets of paper being like, go to Nikki Byrne, go to Nikki. It was such a learning curve on the spot. And then the other thing was we'd be trying to get meetings with like top agencies.
Yes.
And they'd be like, not free, we have a deal with someone else, da da da. But what happened during COVID is our competitors really slowed down because they started losing staff, lowering wages. We sped up. And then I was also just a bit harsher with people. I was like, well, you can meet me on a Zoom. Yeah. As in, how come you can't meet me? What do you mean? So there was a few like big key agencies that hadn't given us the opportunity, and suddenly the door was open. And since we started, that's never changed. So we just had an opportunity to prove ourselves, and it just took COVID. So when COVID ended, we moved into a massive office. Everyone had iMacs. Like, it was so funny because we had a few new people around that time and they just didn't even understand what that meant. Whereas Kendra, she's with you for 9 years. She had to bring in her own laptop for the first like 6 years of that. Yes. I was on €150 laptop for the first 3 years. We could barely afford the rent. And now, so it was such an amazing turning point. And it's like an overnight, but it's like what people say, it's not overnight.
Overnight decade.
Like I slept on the floor of my office because clients wouldn't pay us on time before COVID. Like the things that I did, the money I lost, the debt I got myself into, the bills that were turned off, like all that sort of thing. But I always deep down was like, this is going to work. Like one day we're going to get that agency, like one day. And I remember my friends and family like really struggling with that though. Cause they're like, are you sure? Cause like you're 6 years in and you're really, really having a bad time. Like you're literally barely paying yourself any money. You can't have all the nice things in life. Like obviously we're getting sent nice things and that, but like you're really struggling. And I was like, no, I just believe it. So obviously then the last couple of years I'm like, see, did happen. But I do think the really difficult childhood and being very unhappy and not feeling loved or welcomed or liked created this like obsessive drive all the time that I have to be the best, that I have to prove myself, that we have to go over and above. So that's probably where it comes from. So in a weird way, I'm like thankful for it because of what it's created, but I'm still heartbroken about it. Like I've been in therapy on and off since I was 13 years old. Like it's caused a lot of problems.
No, I was going to say, do you speak to somebody? Like when you talk about your business and you talk very differently. I mean, when you talk about your business, your eyes just light up. You're in the right place. You're doing the right thing. Yeah. It just exudes through you. When you talk about your history, the color, the eyes change.
Yeah, it's like two different people.
Yeah, and I think that's important for people though to understand. That's okay too, because we can only learn. And you've obviously taken it and made it into a real powerful thing for you.
Yeah, like I remember when I was leaving that school, the school before tutorial, there was the talent show was still left, and I had like written a script and like had a whole play ready to go. So I was like to my mom, I'm still going to do it. And I remember when I got up there was a few boos and stuff like that because I was leaving at this point and the bullying was still going on. But I did it, and by the end, a few people were cheering or whatever. And my mom always says to me now, she's like, it's just so who you are as a person, that you still did that show that time.
Yeah.
Like you put yourself in this position. But I did it to almost annoy everyone. I was like, you know what, you've made me leave. You know, whatever, you've succeeded, but I can succeed as well, and I'm going to do this. So I think that's always been there with me, where I'm like, I need to prove that like those things haven't changed me for the worse. Like they've changed me for the better. And it's a hard fine line though, because I've obviously been left with a lot of like anxiety, and I've very open with the fact that I've really struggled with depression all of my life. Like, and that I know it's from that. Like it's an emptiness inside me. It's complete trauma.
Yeah.
And I did chemotherapy like 2 years ago. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. I'd heard Brezzy talking about it before, and they look at specific trauma points in your life and they get you to go back to them. And they basically kind of come with this hypothesis that you're trying to rechange this like one trauma point that happened.
Okay.
And we did that, and it was really true. Like a couple of other things kind of happened as well that I won't bring up, but there was a lot of like abandonment issues and being alone and not feeling loved as a child. And that's still there now. Like as much therapy as you can do, it actually never goes away. You just learn to manage it. But yeah, I think my default is to like work, succeed. Even with like my law degree, like I finished that a couple of months ago. And when I was going into that was during COVID, I started it. Because I was like, well, I always wanted to do law, so I'm going to do it now. That's just the way I am. I'm like, well, I said I wanted to, so I'm going to do it. And I knew that the legislation was coming in for revenge porn, which I obviously ended up working on. And I had no plans to work on it, but I wanted to really understand just how legislation was created. So I was like, I'm going to do this degree. They changed it to a fully online degree, Griffiths, because COVID. So I did it at home.
Perfect.
I'd literally be like crying when the announcement would come out that you can't leave Dublin, because all my family live outside Dublin. So like I literally didn't see anyone for so long. But then I'd have to like pull up my pants and do my lecture, because like it was 7 o'clock. So that really saved me during COVID, first and second year. Then third year came, we were all back to normal, right? That was 2022, 2023. Goss was absolutely flying it, busier than ever, more staff than ever. I was like, how am I going to do this? And I kept saying to my friends and family, I only want to do this if I'm going to do this the best. Like I want to be the best in the class. And everyone was just like, will you calm down?
Yeah.
Like just do as much as you can. And I was like, no. And by third year, I had done the Department of Justice campaign, right? So I'd worked with them, made me even more desperate to be a part of legislative creation and understanding case law and like how to start precedent and all that stuff. So I was obsessed at this point. So anyway, I did the degree, finished it, didn't know how I did. And then it was time to graduate. It was in August. And I got an email being like, urgent, Griffith. I was like, oh my God, like what's after happening? I knew I got a first. Like, so I was really happy with the first.
Good.
That was me getting the top of the class in my mind after everything that happened before.
Right.
And then the email was like, are you attending? Da, da, da. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm attending. Like, what's going on? And they were like, oh, just so you know, we're actually going to be giving you a highest achiever award because you've received the most points.
Amazing.
And I was just like, oh my God. So like, it's so bizarre when you do put your mind to things. I honestly didn't even fully believe. It's like, I did believe, but did I? I don't know. So when that happened, but it's kind of, the sad thing about all that though is I sometimes feel like I have to talk about that a lot, because I'm just like, I want people to take me seriously. People can look at Goss and see the pink offices and be like, oh, Goss is fluff. And I'm like, I'm a serious person.
Yeah.
Like to get the top points in a degree like that's
and
so hard.
Who do you think you need to, like who is it? Is it women? Is it men? Is it people in business? Who is it you're trying to
Honestly, I feel like everyone in the world. Like I feel like it's industry-wise mainly. I think it's the industry. I definitely think the sort of business that I've built, other men have built and they have left those companies. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. And the amount of praise that they got and front covers that they got and you're a genius and da da da. I'm not saying I need those things, but there's been a massive disparity in terms of how I've been treated. I think people think it's luck of the draw that I got here. Not everyone. Like
I do get it.
There are people in the industry that would say they're not mad about me as a person for whatever, but they know I'm a grafter. Like that's come back to me in the grapevine before, that everyone's like, say what you want about her. Don't like her
She's
Instagram.
a grafter.
But she will literally like be on her hands and knees working all day long if she needs to be. So I don't know. I think a little bit is a proof to myself and this weird eternal proving because of what happened to me when I was younger and this needing to feel like I'm good and I'm able and I'm capable. But there is a part of it that I want the industry to take me seriously. But at the end of 2023, we actually won Best Brand at the Digital Media Awards, and that was a good thing. So I'm like slowly, the ladder is like being climbed and people are starting to be like, okay. And that's why Goss is in a really good place. We're getting bigger brands. People are taking us more seriously. The Women of the Year Awards that we do, like that's my passion project. I literally came up with that completely on my own. And I was like, I want to do this, I want to do that. But a part of it was like, I want people to look at Goss and see that there's this other voice there. Like when I came out with my revenge porn story, I shared it through Goss on an article. And like that was a really big decision because we didn't really cover serious
And it's
female
very
topics.
personal to you, obviously.
It's very personal, like my name, my face, everything. And I remember that being a turning point for Goss.ie though, because I was like, well, why aren't we the place that women go to though? And that's why when Aisling Murphy died and when her trial was on, it's also why we work with Women's Aid a lot. Like I work with them a lot. They're part of the Women of the Year Awards as well, but we do campaigns with them a lot because I'm like, girls are coming here to read content. Why not inform them and give them that sort of safe space? So we have grown and changed a lot, but there's just so many other companies that do that with like a board and with like 20 people in management. And like when it's on your own, it takes a toll. But again, I think that drive to prove myself and to show people that I am good at what I do or the best at what I do is always going to be there. So I'll do 12 jobs. Like I work in a solicitor firm at the moment as well as running Goss. Only a couple of hours a week. And I've decided to go back and do some of the FE ones. I know.
But you know what? I think you have proved yourself. I think you really do have to be a little kinder to yourself because I'm not being condescending here or anything, but I'm in my 50s and I feel you completely. I was doing a lot of what you're doing in my 30s because I was the only woman in the room and I fought and I and I would
and there's a weight on your shoulders
fight.
when you're the only woman in the room too, because you used to be like, I had to prove to all these men that I'm not a ditz on behalf of every other woman that's going to come in here in a skirt the next time.
Oh yeah, but there's also a lot of men that know we're not ditzes. Do you know what I mean? Like
it has got better.
Yeah, I look at the female network that I run, and a lot of our sponsors are men because it doesn't work without the good men in the room.
I totally agree.
But like for you, like you're a grafter. I admire you. I'm a grafter. I don't think there's anything wrong with being a grafter. I love what I do. You love what you do.
Yeah.
But how do you ever turn off? And if you do, what is your time? I know you said you love being at home. Is it like in front of the fire with a blanket, a good book and a glass of wine or a cup of tea? Or what do you do for
my
you?
like happiest moments would be, I actually don't really drink much anymore, but it would be like a cup of tea and a dairy milk.
Oh yeah, that
Everyone
sounds
knows
good.
I love dairy milk, so there's actually one in my bag. And like watching something on TV. That would be like my calm time. But weirdly enough, like the law and stuff, even though I know it's something that is a lot of work, a lot of stress, that's a nice break for me from the business because I have to absolutely switch off from Goss to learn the law. Like it's so complex. But do I switch off in general? Not like I have got so much better in terms of when I started Goss, it was 24/7, 7 days a week. I remember even when I listened to Nora Casey's episode, she was talking about interfering with editorial the odd time. She couldn't help herself. I do that the odd time, but I'm very strict now. Like everyone has their own group chats. I'm like not in some of them. I make sure I'm not. But I run the commercial side of Goss. That's what I do. So I couldn't tell you what's on Goss. No idea what the stories are today. No idea. We do have an editorial meeting once a week, so I can be looped in. But it's more like the growth of the brand, like how do we do on social, like how is the story shared? But commercial is it for me. And like I haven't had a proper holiday since I started Goss, which was 10 years ago. As in I've been away, it's been 3 days, 4 days, and something has happened and I've had to go on my laptop. So that bothers me a little bit. I would really love to take a proper break. But in general, I'm better at when I go home, it's like home time. And that's why I'm actually really against the whole work from home thing. I loved it during COVID because I was obviously I was so like at risk of COVID. But what happened was my home was my office and then I really wasn't switching off at all. And it was also my college as well because I was doing the law stuff. Now I'm very like pushy to get the girls in and not in like a negative way. Like I think they love it now.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people graduate without ever meeting their like colleagues and stuff. I just thought it was a bit weird. So I'm really into that. And that's a big reason though. That's a big reason why. Because I want everybody to have the switch off moment too. Now, I'm not going to lie, showbiz, it's very hard to switch off. Like the people in my editorial team are on WhatsApp all the time. But yeah, in terms of the stress, I've made like a lot of decisions over the years that like I change how I deal with things now. So like I have an assistant now who's amazing. So she's a huge help. I'm like, I'm not even looking at the email you reply. And I remember like we had like an issue about a year ago and this like really horrible email got sent to me and a few other people in the business. And I remember being like, right, I'll read it in the morning. And then I went in the morning and I said it to some of the senior staff. I was like, is there anything in there that I actually need to know about? Like, is there a legal issue? And they were like, well, no. And I was like, I'm just going to delete it.
Ignore it.
And they're like, oh my God, but like the things that were said. And I was like, if it's not going to benefit me though, I'm going to leave it. And that's the thing. Like there's 3 things that I believe can really ruin a company. Number 1 is cash flow issues. And when you're running a business by yourself, it's you at night being like, can I pay everyone's salary tomorrow? Can I pay the rent? Number 2 is staff issues. It's become a massive problem in today's age, definitely. Just retaining people, keeping people there, making sure there's not ongoing issues all the time. But I do have someone in HR now, which is a big help. And the third thing is founder burnout. But the problem is those first two cause the burnout. So you're constantly chasing your own tail over and over and over again. So I think over the years I've learned to be like, okay, that is a big deal. And old me would be bawling, crying and dramatic and really unhappy and blah, blah, blah. And now I'm just like, I don't need to know about that. Like, okay, that's happened. If it doesn't affect me directly or the business, I actually don't care. So I've kind of been a little bit colder as I've got more and more into the business. I'm like, if it's not relevant to me and if it's going to bring me down, I certainly don't want to know about it and I certainly don't want to see it, because if I'm down, the ship's going to sink.
Oh yeah, ship rolls downwards.
And everyone says it to you when you start a business, like, don't get yourself stressed. And you're like, oh yeah, it takes so much time of going through so many things to be like, no, actually I do need to like back away. So delegation is a big thing for me now. And I honestly do try to step back. Like my plan is to step back. I don't want to be the CEO forever. I want to hire a new CEO. So I'm in a good place that I'm ready to like step back a bit.
Yeah.
So I'm not as bad as I used to be.
And I'm sure like me, people always say to me, oh, but would you be okay to step back? Would you? I can't.
Take it off me right now.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's so funny actually, even within our conversation, I don't know if you've noticed the speed of your voice has changed as you've relaxed. Your shoulders have moved down as you've relaxed. So I hope you go home tonight and I hope you have a cup of tea.
And the dairy milk's in my bag. Like I'm planning it because I didn't go into the office today.
Amazing.
So I've had like a chill day today. So today's a chill day. Yeah.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed our chat. Thank you so much for coming in. I wish you all the best and you are amazing. Thank you so much. Take care. So thank you for listening to this week's Be Bell podcast. Don't forget, you can find us on social media. If you've got any questions, then please don't hesitate to DM us at bbell_wellness. You can also find this on our YouTube channel, which is my YouTube channel, Sian Horn. And don't forget, the more people that subscribe, the better that we can make this pod. So don't forget, like and subscribe across all channels. And thank you.